Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I can't wait till you guys are no longer in charge. Today, the committee will consider 4 measures, 3 for the first time and 1 for the second time after Republican leadership suffered an embarrassing procedural defeat on the House floor last week. First is H.R. 6192, the Hands Off Our Home Appliance Act. Republicans noticed a Rules Committee meeting on this bill weeks ago, but they were essentially shamed into pulling it from the agenda after they realized a bill on home appliances doesn't really meet the moment, considering all of the real crises that we have going on here in the United States and around the world. But I guess their shame only lasted a week. By the way, appliances in this country are getting more energy efficient. And I can't believe I need to say this, but that's a good thing. That's a good thing. It lowers utility bills, and it puts money back into the pockets of everyday people. And it's not happening by accident. It's happening because of strong rules and regulations adopted by Congress and our federal agencies to protect consumers and enhance efficiency. Why Republicans want to undo all of that is beyond me. I can only assume it's another favor for their corporate sponsors that call the shots. To claim that any of this is about consumer choice is just nuts. The only choice they're giving people here is to pay more on their utility bills. Second is H.R. 7109, the Equal Representation Act, a Republican attempt to rig the census and ignore the Constitution's requirement that we count everyone, not just some people, but all people. Next is H.J. Res. 109, a Congressional Review Act, which would potentially prevent the SEC from issuing staff guidance on cryptocurrency. No idea which Republican donor or lobbyist asked for that, but here it is. And finally is H.R. 2925, the Mining Regulatory Clarity Act of 2024. Again, last week, the House agreed in a bipartisan vote on the floor to send this bill back to the Natural Resources Committee with instructions to report it back with an amendment offered by Ms. Ledger-Fernandez. That amendment, the Ledger-Fernandez amendment, would have modified this bill to ban companies from foreign adversary nations from conducting mining activities on America's public lands. It would stop them from exploiting American resources and polluting our public lands, and then profiting off those resources and forcing the American taxpayer to do the cleanup. As you know, Mr. Chairman, her motion passed. So I'm a little puzzled why this bill is back before the Rules Committee and not the Natural Resources Committee. And since I won't have the opportunity to question the chairman of the Natural Resources Committee, I'm going to use this opportunity to ask for some clarification. And I'm happy to yield to you, Mr. Chairman, to explain if you think it's a good idea for Republican leaders to just ignore the House's vote and send this bill not to the Natural Resources Committee, but right back to the Rules Committee.
Gentlemen, we yield. I think the Natural Resources has acted on this bill. Their preference was known to us last week when we had the original hearing on this, and I think it's appropriate to bring it back to the floor, and I'll yield back.
Yeah, and I guess what that answer ignores is the fact that the House had a vote. You know, clearly a bipartisan majority in the House thought Ms. Ledger-Fernandez had a good idea. And she moved on the House floor to recommit the bill back to the Natural Resources Committee, not the Rules Committee. And instead of doing what the House directed, Republican leaders said this is coming right back to the Rules Committee and totally bypassing the committee it was supposed to go to. I mean, what's the point here? Is it to avoid debating the Ledger-Fernandez amendment or what? I'm just trying to understand, like, the House voted in a bipartisan way to do a certain thing, and we're not doing that here. Is there a reason for that?
Well, the gentleman yield.
Yeah, happy to yield.
The House will have its opportunity to vote again this week, and I look for a positive outcome.
Look, this is an important issue that deserves debate. And if Republicans want to make the case that Chinese corporations should be allowed to plunder our public lands and resources for free, they should send it back to the Natural Resources Committee to make that case. But I guess that's not going to happen here. We're just going to pretend like the vote on the House floor didn't happen. I guess that's how regular order works under this majority. Votes only matter if they like the outcome. And to add insult to injury, last year we heard on and on from the other side that Joe Biden was, quote, betraying America by letting China purchase American oil. Now Republicans want to let Chinese companies come in and extract minerals from our public lands and then force Americans to clean up the mess that they leave behind. Now, I'd love to hear how my friends on the other side contort themselves to explain this obvious contradiction, but I don't think that we have the time. So this is all just more of the same from this failed Republican majority. It's all about partisan warfare. Instead of actually working with Democrats to get stuff done. And what really is concerning, it really is about ignoring the rules and the procedures and the processes of this House, ignoring the will of a bipartisan majority of Congress in this case. I mean, the Rules Committee, as I said last week, should be renamed the Break the Rules Committee, because that's what we seem to be doing every week that we meet. And I think it's regrettable. I think it's regrettable not just because I don't think it's fair, and not just because it doesn't respect the will of the majority in this House. I think it's regrettable because I think it further demeans this institution. And with that, I yield back.